Here you go. We saw your screen. We have your audio. So the floor is all yours. Please proceed with the presentation. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. And it's been some time actually with these webinars with the Global Academy for Performance Management. And one of the key topics that we are discussing is more about the cascading of the corporate strategy into operational levels. So over the next probably 45 to 50 minutes, I will be sharing with you my thoughts and my experience over the area of cascading strategy. Before we start, I'm sure Ali has explained that we will take all your questions at the end. So I will just go ahead and present the topic of today. So it is about strategy, and strategy is one of the hot topics for middle and senior management. Now, this area has been very, very challenging in terms of how we actually link up what we do on the ground to the higher level strategy and vision. I hope that I will be able to explain some of this to you, and at the same time maybe share with you a holistic overview of the process and some of the tools used for this cascade. So before we start, your strategy in your organization is a massive work. It is something really huge, and to bring it into life and to make it more operational, and to actually make sure that all divisions, all departments, all units, all teams, and all individuals have their own share of the strategy is a very challenging task. Let's have a look at this. Generally speaking, we could probably look at your strategy as a huge white elephant, if you like, and which needs cascading, which needs actually taking it down to more manageable chunks, and where we can actually track delivery, performance, outputs, and outcomes in the end. So how do you eat an elephant? Generally speaking, when you look at a huge thing like this, you would always want to bring it down into pieces, to break it down into smaller pieces. You actually eat the elephant by just doing, cutting it into slices and eating it one bite at a time. So let's see how we can do that throughout this webinar. But before we do that, let's establish some key concepts. I hope that the screen is clear to you. Is it clear, Ali? Is everything all right? Can you see the full screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Full screen, and we can hear you. Please.
Brilliant, brilliant, excellent. So let's look at the key concepts that surround the strategic context versus the operational context. There are key areas or key terminology that we need to understand, or to probably clarify, to avoid any misconception about what we mean by these terminology, which are used, in different parts of the world in a way that sometimes creates confusion. So at the strategic level, mainly what we are looking at, when we speak of strategy, we speak of the corporate level. So we look at the organization as a whole, and we define the strategy at the organizational level. And however, when we talk about operational, if you like, is more about the division or the department levels. And again, one of the key areas there is just the confusion where people sometimes refer to their business plans or annual business plans, or if you like to call them the department or the division business plan. They refer to that as being strategic, and this is one of the mistakes that we usually fall into. Your plan at the department level and at the division level is an operational plan, which will come into further clarifications in a minute. So when we talk about accountability, and at the same time, who is responsible and who is fully accountable for which part of the work. Now, defining the strategy, designing, developing the strategy, developing the strategic framework as a whole is a responsibility of the leadership team, of the top management. And that's why actually the accountability also falls on the leadership and the top management for the strategy, for the final outcomes of the strategy. However, when we talk about operational business plans or division department business plans, we're talking about the responsibility and accountability falling on the shoulders of the executive management or the teams, if you like to call them heads of departments or managers or directors. One of the key concepts as well is more about the time frame. When we speak of strategy or a strategic plan as such, we're talking about medium to long-term plan. It is in this sense a multi-year plan of a minimum probably of 3 years, could go up to 4 years or 5 years. So 5 years of plan, which is what we call the corporate strategy at that level. However, when we talk about the plan or the business plan at the department and the operational level, it is an annual business plan. So it is limited to the performance year, and it starts on the 1st of January and ends on the 31st of December of every year. It's actually one portion of the plan as such. So the strategic plan is broken into annual plans, and every department has his share or its share of the overall organizational plan. So the operational plan being only 12 months, and it's assessed on annual basis, and it's directly linked to the overall strategy, which, as we said, could be no less than 3 years of strategic planning, up to a maximum probably of 5 years. Now, when we talk about strategy, we are more concerned with the purpose. So we are concerned with the purpose. It's more very generic, very high level strategy. Difficult to maybe explain as such, or difficult to monitor, to measure. And that's why we have to break it down into action plans. At the operational level, I don't know if I can use the flash. Okay. At the operational level, it's more action oriented as a plan. It's very detailed. So the lower level that you are at, the more detailed you actually become, or you get into more details of the business plan. So if you go as far as the employee level, then at that level, the details are very, very specific as such. Right. And the final thing which I would like to actually just highlight here at this stage is more the focus. The focus of the strategy is, I mean, in terms of impact, is on effectiveness. While when we talk about our daily operation, our sort of operation on the ground in the departments, various departments or production units, we think of efficiency. So efficiency is a key word when it comes to operational situation or operational context, while effectiveness is more at the strategic level. Anyway, after this very short, high-level key concepts analyzed, I would like to take you through, maybe take you a step back and look at this, where it all started. Everything, when it comes to strategy, everything starts with a vision. Vision is, if you like, the mothership of the whole strategic work and operational work in the organizations. So with strategy and in terms of strategic planning or a strategic vision in terms of a time frame, a strategic vision is normally no less than 10 years vision, a 10-year vision up to probably even sometimes 15 years or 20 years vision. Hence the Vision 2030 in Saudi Arabia, which started in 2016, and it will continue to run until 2030. So this vision actually encompasses number of strategic plans, consecutive strategic plans. So they stem out of from the vision, and this is how we see the alignment and the cascade starting at the vision level first. Now, so looking at the vision always explains the why. Why are we going into that direction? Why are we doing what we are doing? Why this organization is heading into that direction? So we are talking about defining the why for our organization. Out of that, we start creating or developing our corporate strategic plans, which is more concerned of what we want to achieve. So it's the what in terms of the strategic goals that we want to achieve, where we want to arrive at the end of that point in time. When we talk about the annual business plans, which we talked about earlier, and we said it's more about the details, the actions on the ground. So it is about the how. So we actually move from the why into the what to the how. At the operational level, the how explains more about what kind of actions, what are we going to do exactly, what kind of initiatives, projects, assignments that have to be executed in order for the higher level strategic plan get realized and get achieved, and eventually, of course, the vision gets realized. Anyway, this is again another high level of the why, the what, and the how. Right. Let's look at the key building blocks of a corporate strategic plan. I mean, these are initial steps, if you like. I'm trying to take you slowly, one step at a time, to see where we're going from, where we're going to, and where we're coming from into this. Every strategy, the main component, the main building block of a strategy is defining the strategic goals. Sometimes they are called strategic objectives. It doesn't matter, actually. Whether they're goals or objectives, they are a strategic nature and they are part of the strategic plan. Therefore, they are valid for as long as the strategic plan is valid as well. So strategic goals and objectives. And if we add up to this a building block of KPIs, and the purpose of having KPIs at that level is that the role of KPIs here is to measure the progress made on the objective or on the goal. So there is no other role for KPIs but to measure how much progress has been made at that particular goal. Again, some of the issues that people, can argue is, and sometimes we have some misconceptions. Some people may think that KPIs actually, their role is to achieve the strategic goal. And that's, again, one of the misconceptions. KPIs do not achieve the strategic goal. They only measure. Their role is to measure the strategic goal and the objective, not to achieve it or to help achieve it. Now, with strategic goals and KPIs, if we put them together, we end up with what is called, which is going to be explained later, a balanced scorecard. So a balanced scorecard, which is one of the key tools for cascading, for actually developing and cascading strategies, is made up of the strategic goals and their associated KPIs. Every goal, along with a number of KPIs, which are there to measure the progress made on that particular goal or objective. And that's what we call the balanced scorecard. As I said, it will be explained shortly. The same goals, if we have the strategic goals and objectives and we add up to them the initiatives, what we call projects, what we call, if you like, the programs that you want to implement, the projects, the initiatives, the actual assignments that we handle and we manage on daily, weekly, monthly basis. When we get to this, we eventually define what is called a portfolio of initiatives. Now, I get back to these initiatives. The role of initiatives is that here is to actually help achieve the strategic goal. So while KPIs only measure initiatives, once they get executed, they help achieve the goal or a part of the goal. So we could end up with a goal and a number of initiatives. If we manage them, if we implement them, if we execute these things, these initiatives, then the goal gets achieved in the end. So strategic goals, an objective plus KPIs, which are the tools of measurement, give us the balanced scorecard, while the same strategic goals with their associated initiatives gives us the portfolio of initiatives, and the purpose of the initiatives is to help achieve those goals and objectives. Now, if we look at the balanced scorecard in itself, and we add it up to the portfolio of initiatives, what we end up with is the corporate strategic plan, as we said, which is normally between 3 and 4 years. So a balanced scorecard plus a portfolio of initiatives equals our corporate strategic plan. Okay, I hope this is clear enough for us to know what are the key components or building blocks of a strategic plan and where they come from, and what are the roles of each component in the process of strategic planning. Okay, now let's go to the strategy balance scorecard. Strategy balance scorecard is a system, if you like, is a framework, is a tool which is used for developing strategies at the corporate level. So we look at the key 4 perspectives of the balanced scorecard, which is, by the way, this is like a tool that is used by more than 75% of organizations all over the world. I mean, when we talk about whether it's corporate organizations, government, third sector organizations, they all use the balanced scorecard framework as a tool to actually develop their own strategies and their as we said, within this framework, which has the financial perspective, the customer perspective, the internal process perspective, and the learning and growth. This particular tool has, as we said, the objectives or the goals, plus the KPIs that are associated with those goals and objectives. Now, the role of the balanced scorecard is to help us define, develop a strategy that's well balanced, that looks at external and internal perspectives evenly and equally, in a way that will actually make this organization look after its external stakeholders at the customer perspective, look at its financial situation, budgeting and otherwise, and at the same time look at their internal process and how they actually deliver their particular services or solutions, projects, initiatives, and so on. At the same time, the key area which looks at the people within the organization, the learning and growth, which makes sure that this is a learning organization which has all the objectives which need to be delivered as well. And we will make sure that the organization attracts the right talent, for example, develops and retains the right talent in the organization, develops internally leadership from within the organization, looks at organizational capacity, and at the same time also create an environment which fosters innovation and creativity. So this is one of the key tools. And why is it is important? Because once the strategy, once we have what we call a strategic balance scorecard at the organizational level, at the corporate level, this will be cascaded into also balance scorecards for each and every department, for each and every division, for each and every unit. So we will use the same tool to cascade the higher level goals, objectives, and KPIs into the lower level within the organization. I hope that was clear enough before we move on to the next one. The next tool at the organizational level also that we need to look at is to look at the relationship between the various objectives or strategic goals. And within the framework of the scorecard, as you can see, the financial, the customer, the processes, and the people, we create the linkage between the various strategic goals and how they are related into what we call a strategic map or a strategy map. So a strategy map actually looks at the strategic goals and links them up together from the people perspective into the processes, into the customer, into the financial. This is a good example for you on the screen, where it shows you that, for example, here in this respect, we have two strategic goals at people's level, 3 goals at processes level, 4 goals at customer or stakeholder level, and 3 goals at the financial level. A total of an average of 12 strategic goals for a corporate strategy for a period, as we said, of 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years. So when we talk about these goals, as we said, at this snapshot that you see, only shows how they are linked up, what are the relationship between these various goals within the organization. You will have maybe a lower level strategy map, not actually strategy, but it's just an annual business plan map for every department, if you like, which can help also have a clear overview of the plan for that particular division or department. Right. Now let's look at the strategy. Just look at some of the mechanics. I mean, if we look at the corporate strategy that is going to start next year in your organization from the year 2021 to the year 2024, which is a total of 4 years. When we take it to one level down, When we take it one level down to the division level or to the departments, whatever you call them within your organization. So we have a Division A annual business plan for 2021 only, which is limited to this time frame of the first year of the corporate strategy. The same thing that we have for Division B, Division C, and Division D. Now, of course, when we talk about the divisions, we talk about their share of the overall corporate strategy in terms of their objectives for that particular division and the associated KPIs that come along with them for measurement purposes, and the various assignments, projects, and initiatives that are assigned and allocated for that particular department as part of their annual business plan. Take it one level down, if you like, in terms of the hierarchy, if you have like sections or units or teams, if you like. So a unit or a team action plan is within Division A, for example, comes as part, it is actually cascaded from the division annual business plan, not from the strategy directly. So the first level is the division level, then we take the division and break it into smaller pieces as per the different units or different teams operating in that division. The next level, which is the more details, the more, as we said, the more specific, is the employee level. When we talk about the employee level, which I will explain later in this presentation as well, the employee level, of course, again, this is an annual performance agreement, which has all the employees' objectives for that particular year, KPIs that will help us measure performance throughout the year for every particular employee. And those come from the unit that he works in, or the section that he works in, from the action plan of that particular unit. Again, so this is directly cascaded from the unit action plan. Okay, simple and straightforward, I hope. When we talk about KPIs throughout the organization as one of the cascades as well, again, as we said, it's all about the what, and the lower level explains for us the how. So KPIs at higher level are strategic at organizational level, which sometimes when we cascade KPIs, we break them down into something more specific to the unit, to the department, to the division. And we have to actually be more specific in terms of what KPIs are measuring what exactly. All the way from the higher level, from the corporate scorecard to the business division scorecard, to the employee, the unit or the team scorecard. At the employee level, we actually do not call it a scorecard, but we call it an employee annual performance agreement. And as I said, we'll explain in terms of the key components of that particular agreement for the employee. But as we explained, then we have a scorecard at the corporate level, and we have a scorecard for each and every division in the organization. We have one scorecard for every division, whether you call it division or department, right? And then under this as well, one level down, and then we have a scorecard for every section or every unit in the organization. You see how useful the scorecard tool is used to cascade from higher level into more operational and lower levels all the way to the unit and section. Right. With KPIs, then, the KPIs at the corporate level with financial, customer, internal process, organizational capacity, or people, as we said, are more of strategic nature. They are very strategic at that level. Then when we go down, we look at the organization at our products and services. And we have KPIs that actually look at the product and service in terms of efficiency, output, quality, and then in terms of timeliness as well. We have KPIs which are focused on projects, or what, as we said, they are initiatives or projects, which look at schedule, resources, risk, and scope. These are the kind of KPIs that are associated with a project. We have KPIs at the employee level as well, which are, as I said, measuring the output of employees throughout the performance year. And we also have some risk KPIs, which are more about foreseeing challenges in the future and mitigating the associated or the potential damage that they are likely to bring about with them. Now, the logic model is one of the key tools as well, the logic model or the value chain, which always looks at our internal process and looks at also at our projects, where we look at 4 key areas: the inputs, the process, the outputs, and the final outcomes. Let's just look at them and try to make sense out of this. In every process that we do within the organization, we have certain inputs that have to be there. We have to make sure that the allocation of resources is in place before we take off, before we start working on that particular initiative, project, or internal process. Within the process, it's more about the steps, the transformation, the stages that our work goes through. And again, efficiency is a key focus in that particular area. Then we also have to define or eventually arrive on what are the outputs of this process and the final outcomes. Intermediate and final outcomes are more strategic in nature. I'll explain in a second. So within inputs, we have certain KPIs which we use. We have KPIs as well at the process level, at the output level, and at the outcome level. I think I have some examples. Right. Yeah, so with operational measurements, so input, process, and outputs are more operational. The intermediate outcomes and the final or the end outcomes are more strategic in terms of what we want to get eventually from out of this. And this value chain, which has, which is actually established to monitor, to track progress, and to make sure that we manage our operation with the highest efficiency levels, and at the same time, we arrive at the desired outcomes as initially planned. I'll just give you an overview of some example here. Examples of types of KPIs and where we have to actually look at balancing KPIs. When we look at KPIs, and we have what we call leading KPIs versus lagging KPIs. I mean, this is more about KPIs working together. So one thing I must mention here, you cannot easily measure an objective or a goal with one single KPI. You will need to have a minimum of 2 KPIs to avoid any distortion or manipulation of the results. You want to actually look at, for example, you want to look at areas which actually balance the outcome. So that's why we're looking at those KPIs as pairs of KPIs, leading versus lagging, efficiency versus effectiveness, and quantity-based versus quality-based. Let's have a look at them. So when we talk about, for example, a percentage of employee satisfaction as a KPI at the leading level, this is the relationship here is more about cause and effect. So this actually leads to a lower percentage of employee turnover. So the higher the employee satisfaction, the lower the employee turnover. That's why you will start to realize now why we have to have two KPIs and we have to manage them in parallel. So let's look at this. Number of qualified nurses, percentage of children's vaccinated. If we're talking about the COVID-19 at the moment, so the more qualified nurses, and if we have the vaccine, the more children get vaccinated at the end of the day, once we are running this exercise, hopefully in the near future. So this actually is a cause, and this is an effect. So you work on this, and it will definitely impact this on the right-hand side. If you want more children to be vaccinated, you will need to have more qualified nurses. If you want to have a lower employee turnover, you will need to work on the employee satisfaction. So it's a cause and effect. It's one thing leading to another, and that's why this pair of KPIs have to be working together in the organization at all levels, from the corporate to the department and to the employee level. Now let's look at efficiency KPIs versus effectiveness. I mean, when we look at this example, percentage of female employees in the labor market in Saudi Arabia, and percentage of females in management. If we only have one KPI to measure the contribution of female employees in the Saudi labor market, just looking at that in itself will not give you a clear picture of the situation. Because if we are saying that we have 32%, for example, ladies within the labor market in Saudi Arabia. So if we look at it, might say, well, 32%, that's a good percentage. But if they end up that all those people, all those ladies are actually in junior level positions, in minor roles, in not really in critical positions within the organization. That's why we need a more strategic KPI to balance that, which is a percentage of females in management. So we need to know, out of this 32%, what is the percentage of females as heads of departments or heads of divisions, or how many females are in leadership roles, or at the board of directors level. And so this part, which is the effectiveness part, is actually a key part of the previous efficiency percentage. And it's the more, if you like, the more impactful KPIs that we are looking for. Let's take another example. If we talk about Al-Riyadh newspaper, and we look at number of subscribers, and we have 2 million people subscribers of Al-Riyadh newspaper. We actually want to find out from this 2 million people, what is the percentage of business subscribers, or those people, influential people, or investors, or decision makers, government officials, as part of the number of subscribers. And the impact, the higher impact, is on this part of on this particular KPI to balance the efficiency KPI. Again, sometimes we have KPIs which are qualitative in nature and quantitative in nature somehow. And that's why we look at sometimes balancing those quantity-based KPIs, like number of customer complaints, versus the percentage of customer satisfaction. And by adding up these two together, we'll have a better picture, a well-balanced overview of the KPI as such. For example, percentage of market share, which is a KPI for the stakeholders' perspective, versus our percentage of brand awareness. And you see the kind of relationship, and you would easily tell that those KPIs of a qualitative base are definitely more challenging to measure. So generally speaking, the rationale for creating balance, while the time is key when we talk about our business, when we talk about our work, when we talk about executing our strategy, time is critical. Yes, but time on its own cannot actually give us a good picture of the situation. So while the KPI that actually looks at the time to deliver is important, we also have to look at the quality. Quality and meeting the specifications originally agreed at the beginning of the project. At the same time, the cost is key. We have to work and operate and deliver our objectives and deliver what we want to achieve within the budget as defined in the organization. So we have to balance time with quality and cost. We need to make sure that we have KPIs to look at these areas in parallel to make sure that we have delivered our strategy at all levels within these key parameters. When we go to lower level, when we talk about cascade, gentlemen and ladies, when we talk about cascade, the lower we go, the cascade, I mean, from the higher level to the lower levels, the smarter the objectives and the more specific they become. So while the strategic goals are wide open, they are very strategic, very generic, maybe very like open wide in terms of scope. Very good today. Yeah. Okay. Now, so we have to apply the criteria of the SMART criteria when we cascade our objectives, when we cascade our KPIs, and when we define our assignments all the way. Let's look at the employee level. I just would like to share with you a couple of things here. When we talk about the employee annual performance agreement, it looks like, I mean, it's probably something similar to a scorecard at an employee level. It's slightly different, but the annual performance agreement of an employee includes some objectives at the employee level, and some of those objectives are taken again from his division or his unit annual business plan. So one key source for the employee objectives is the division, and that's how the cascade works from the division level or from the unit level to the employee level, right? So division action plan, annual business plan, we take the part which is related to this particular employee and make it part of his annual performance agreement. But at the same time, the position, job profile, or job description, we will have to develop certain objectives based on the job profile or the job description of the employee. Together, these two make the objectives of the employee, which we want to measure, which we want actually to manage and measure throughout the year. One third component of the annual performance agreement is the behavioral and leadership competencies as a key component of the employee's performance. So we don't only look at the hard side. This is the hard side. These are objectives, very clear cut objectives. And this is the soft side. These are the behavioral competencies, such as the employee's capabilities related to teamwork, effective communication, problem solving, decision making, analytical skills, and various other things that we want also to make sure our employees, and on this softer side, are also of the expected competence level. So these are the three things that actually make up the annual performance agreement of the employee. Now, looking at the employee, I would like you just to follow with me how we actually measure the performance. So the objectives, whether they're coming from the action plan or the higher level action plan, and the behavioral competencies, as we said, they all make the employee performance. In terms of performance measurement, we measure performance on the objectives with key performance indicators, with KPIs, simple, just very straightforward, in the same way that we measure any other objectives at any level within the organization. However, when we look at behavioral competencies, we cannot use KPIs to measure behavioral competencies. So we use what you might actually have come across called 360-degree feedback or assessment. So it's a mechanism of 360-degree feedback, which we use from the perspectives of the employees, subordinates, and peers, and internal and external customers, to see how well that person, in terms of competencies, has been doing throughout the year. So we measure this with KPIs and this with 360, as you can see. Right. I would like maybe just to give you some piece of advice here when we come to cascading. Before, I only have one more slide to finish, but before that, I would like just to always say one key factor when we talk about cascading strategy to organizational levels, to department, divisions, teams, and individuals, is to keep them simple. Simplicity, this philosophy, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. I mean, you've heard of this before many times. So being simple, being really clear, help the department or the individual focus on what needs to be achieved. This is a piece of advice at this level, which I would like that you keep in mind when you are working on cascading the objectives from any level to the lower levels within your department or division. I would like to finish with this particular slide here, which actually looks at some key success factors for the strategy execution. Any strategy at the corporate level, any plan that you have for an organization, has to make sure that the right, if you like, things are in place. So eventually you will have to have the why in place. You will have to have the vision in place, well defined and clearly shared and bought into by everybody within the organization. You will need to have the skills, meaning that you will need to have the people with the skills, the people with the skill sets, the people with the capabilities, with the competence, technical, behavioral, and leadership. So those are your people. Those are your human resource component, your workforce within the organization. You will need also to allocate the resources within the organization. And this is a key component as well. You have to have the right resources in place, be it financial, be it infrastructure, be it any other resources that may be required for the process to flow. You also have to make sure that you have a sort of motivation scheme in place, which may include things like reward for high performers. You will need to establish some sort of reward and recognition scheme in place to make sure that this will actually keep your people motivated to deliver. And you have to have the action plan, as we discussed, the steps that you want to follow throughout the execution. Now, if you have all of them, the vision, the skills, the resources, the motivation, the action plan, you actually have a successful implementation of your strategy or of your department plan. If you actually do not have a vision, you create some ambiguity within the department. People do what they do, but they don't know why they are doing it. They do not know why they are doing what they are doing, apart from the fact that you are actually telling them and instructing them to do that. People need to be need the vision so that they are convinced, they are actually more engaged, and they put all their effort, their mind, their heart into what they are doing once that vision is clear and shared and bought into throughout the organization. If you happen to have everything else and you don't have the people, or you don't have the skills, or you don't have people with the right skills, or then eventually what you have is anxiety. And anxiety here is more about the fact that you may have the best tools, you may have the best resources. If you don't look after upgrading the skills of your people, if you don't actually train them to the right levels, then they will end up in a situation which is very difficult, and they will feel very anxious how they're going to deliver their targets in the absence of having the right skills. So this is more about building capabilities. This is more about making sure that your employees are well developed to the right level. If you have everything else and you don't actually have the resources, and it happens, and sometimes there is a shortage of resources, what happens is frustration, because you have a capable team, you have a clear vision, you have good motivation and a good action plan, but you don't actually have the resources, you don't have the funds, you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have these things. You end up with a very frustrated workforce. It's like having the best person, but you don't actually have the right work for that person. If we have everything else and we don't have motivation within for that particular work that we are doing, we end up with a lack of desire. Why would anybody do that particular thing? And why we need to create some enthusiasm and people to be engaged, and the way to do that is actually to include a motivation component within our plan. And finally, just imagine, and that's the final part which I'm saying here, is you have the clear vision, you have the competent team, you have all the resources that you need, and you have a motivation, but you don't have an action plan. If you don't have an action plan, and that's a complete disaster here, you will actually always end up with a false start, and then once you are halfway through, or as you proceed, you will have to always go back to square one, because that must have been the wrong sequence of events. Did not tell you actually what you need to be doing, how you want to be going in from one stage to another. So the action plan is the roadmap. And if you don't have a roadmap, it's like walking blindly into the forest in a very dark night, so you wouldn't know what you are doing, where you're going, and what you should be expecting to deliver your objectives. I must say, one of the key things as well is which I probably did not talk about, is actually the targets, how you actually make sure that the targets defined for every level, at each level, need to be also realistic and need to be managed properly to make sure that we actually achieve those targets and eventually achieve the performance level that we expect. I suppose I have gone 5 minutes beyond the time allocated for me. So that will be the end of my presentation or webinar. Thank you for listening. Sorry for the interruptions, for the technical issues. Sorry for the internet business. I think we're back on track now. So let's go to the open discussion. I'm sure you have put some questions in the chat for our moderator, Ali, who will share them and will try to discuss them together. I don't promise that I have answers for all your questions, but what I'm going to promise is that we discuss them together and have an open discussion about them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Manal, for a very, very interesting and intriguing presentation. And folks, we're now open for question and answers. If you have any questions, please, may I request to insert your questions in the Q&A box, then a chat box, as it's easy for us to organize and sequence the questions in an organized manner to ask. So let me go to the question box. The first one from Brother A.S. Mukhtar. With all the disruptive technologies and things like COVID-19, is it still valid to make a 10+ year strategic vision?
Yeah, well, okay. Again, as I said, I don't have definite answers for these things. But generally speaking, I mean, these issues in the third millennium, the VUCA kind of environment that we are in, you know, highly volatile and very complex, and so in the past, if you like, strategic plans were even longer. They used to be 5 years. Now they said we will need to bring them down to probably 3 years or 4 years to be able to manage and have a clear vision of the future. Still, I mean, a strategy in terms of what you want to achieve over a period of 3 years or 4 years is something that has to be under full control. A vision is something wider in terms of this strategy. And again, you should, within the time frame of 10 years or 15 years, be able to manage your strategic plans and eventually deliver or realize your vision. COVID-19, other issues in the future should not actually have, they may actually have, like for now, we think that we have a sort of immediate impact, but on the strategic term, if you spread the COVID-19 situation now over a period of 10 years or 15 years, the impact will still be controllable and manageable. That's at least my view, as I said.
Thank you very much. And then there's another short question from Amira Badr. Do the initiatives represent the how stage? I think she was referring to one of the earlier slides.
Yes.
On initiatives.
Yes. Yes. The initiatives, yes, actually include the how stage, as we said, in terms of what needs implementing, in terms of initiatives, in terms of projects, in terms of our internal processes. And so they are clearly defined, and we monitor them and track them based on the logic model, as we discussed, and on the value chain, making sure that you know, we track inputs, the flow chart, and the outputs and the end results. yes, it is more about, by the way, and this is a very valid question as well, when we talk about the employees' objectives, when we go to the level of the employee and we start defining objectives, the objectives themselves become, if you like, the assignments which we give to that employee. The maybe bundle of activities that that employee has to handle. So we don't have initiatives at employee level. We have the broken. We break down the bigger initiatives into manageable assignments, and we hand them over to the employees to manage throughout the year. So the assignment can be very much like the objective, and vice versa.
Thank you very much. And then we have another one from Brother Jafar Al-Marzouki. You mentioned that BSC, the Balanced Scorecard, contains the strategic objectives divided into 4 perspectives with KPIs. While is it rightly say BSC is strategic objectives plus KPIs plus targets plus initiatives?
Yeah, the Balanced Scorecard, initially, if you remember the slide that we put, we tried to say that of course, the strategic goals or strategic objectives, plus their associated KPIs at the strategic level, along with the targets at that level as well, form the Balanced Scorecard. Now, when we look at the framework of the Balanced Scorecard, when it comes to the initiatives, actually we call it a portfolio of initiatives and projects. And the people with some background in project management would actually know how this whole thing is handled. So a portfolio of initiatives or projects includes your strategic goals and your initiatives, well defined as to those initiatives. For example, who is the initiative manager or owner, the team, the resources, the budget, the time frame for that particular initiative to be delivered. Because as we said, I mean, if those initiatives get executed, then parts of the strategic goal actually get achieved. So that's the key part of it. So let's not mix them up. Let's not mix the Balanced Scorecard, which has the goals and KPIs, with the portfolio of initiatives.
Thank you very much. Another one, what are the tools which could be used to create a strategy for an organization?
Well, okay, I thought we had a discussion in the beginning, and when I was introducing that some of the tools, I just gave you a holistic overview of the process with some of the tools that are used. One of the key tools, again, to use to design and develop a strategy is the Balanced Scorecard as a framework. So this is where you actually define your goals. This is where you define your KPIs for those, to measure those goals. This is where you make sure that you have the right number of goals throughout the organization, balancing external versus internal perspectives. This is one of the key tools to develop a strategy. When you go to operation level, you use probably different tools. You use the value chain to measure or to manage your initiatives throughout. So generally speaking, there are different tools which you can create at every level to make sure that the cascade makes sense and there is proper alignment with the higher levels throughout the organization. So the alignment is top down, bottom up, and across the organization. Once you use actually defined tools such as I said, Balanced Scorecard, the value chain or the logic model.
All right, thank you very much. We have Brother Hatem Mustafa who has raised a hand. I've just unmuted you, Brother Mustafa. Could you please unmute yourself and ask the question and kindly introduce yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is Dr. Hatem Mustafa. I'm a consultant in community medicine, public health. I'm responsible of strategic management office in Al-Ihsa Health Cluster. Thanks again, Dr. Manhal, and thank you so much, Dr. 3M. I think this is very useful because we have most of our strategic management officer in the hospital now attended this is interesting situation. Actually, my question is that, as you know, in the Vision 2030 here in Saudi Arabia, there is a radical shift from Ministry of Health to a corporate level, which you call the cluster. And the cluster definitely will be responsible of the operational level in the hospital, while the Ministry of Health mainly for the regulation and the supervision. However, now in the cluster, we develop our own strategy, whether it's 2-year strategy or 5-year strategy, towards the accountable care organization and towards the value-based care. So how you can look for the strategy at a corporate level in the cluster when we look to the hospital as a separate entity? Is it a departmental? Can we call a hospital our departments? And putting into consideration that the hospital also required to have their own strategy aligned with our strategy. And also our strategy will be aligned with the health holding company. And this is the company which is responsible of all the cluster. So how this alignment can be done in terms of corporate level, department, and unit level. Again, the second question, when we talk about the balance scorecard, most of the literature is that it is applicable for the business. But when it comes to a high complex organization like health sector, you will have certain dimension rather than the dimension of the 4 dimension like the quality, the patient experience, and other dimension in highly volatile environment. So how you can make the balance scorecard and the tools, especially in the health sector. Thanks again, and on behalf of our SOMO officer here, I would like to thank you because it is really very useful, and we just start our strategy. This is definitely, we can create a roadmap for us. Thank you so much again.
It's my pleasure. Ali, is Dr. 3M there? Dr. 3M?
Yes, I'm there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dr. 3M, I mean, has been working with the health sector, and especially recently. So I would hand over that to you, sir.
Okay. Why? Because since this is a very specialized question, I have a very close contact, direct contact with Dr. Hatem. I promise him that right after we finish this, we can have one-on-one discussion, because this is very technical and is very related to the new governance that the Ministry of Health has created. So you can carry on with the remaining questions. I would like just to highlight that Dr. Hatem is watching this along with a big group in a big room with a video. So you have multiple viewers sitting in one room watching your seminar.
Okay, lovely.
Okay.
Well, then fine. So you are in good hands, Dr. Hatem, with Dr. 3M, because he's been looking at this. I mean, generally speaking, everybody knows that the massive change within the government, where various government organizations will convert into becoming more regulatory bodies, and to maybe involve the private sector in managing the operations on the ground. Health sector is a very good example. I wouldn't actually give a very technical answer here, but I would like to say that, you know, when we talk about strategy and developing strategy, managing strategy, cascading strategy, execution and all the rest of it, gentlemen and ladies, the basics are the same. The fundamentals are the same. So once you have the right tools in place, once you actually start working on them and make sure that you put into this framework, you align your vision throughout and you put what you need to achieve. I think like your life will become much easier. But again, as I said, the technical will follow in details later from Dr. 3M.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, brother Dr. Hatem, for a very interesting question. Do you have any supplementary question, Dr. Hatem?
Thank you so much. Thank you. It is really interested, and definitely we will try to, inshallah, take this information to implement it in our sector. And I agree with you, Dr. Manhal, that strategy can be implemented in any sector, including the health, definitely.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I know we are pressed on time. There are a number of other questions. Brother Manal, can we take about 2-3 more questions, or 2 at least?
I'm fine. Yeah.
All right. So let me go. There's another one. Let me pick. There's a simple one from Abdul Rahman Al Amar. That can you please give us an example of KPI at the level of an employee?
Well, the KPIs at the level of the employee are no different than the KPIs at any level. It's only, again, the KPI is there to measure progress made on the objective. So once the objective is there, then the KPI can be defined. The most important thing about KPIs is that you actually do not use one single isolated KPI to measure an employee objective. Try always to at least have 2 KPIs that can balance each other. In terms of, again, as we discussed on balance, could be percentage of completion of task on time. This is one simple, straightforward KPI for an employee if he is managing an assignment of some sort. Sometimes, again, as I said, you will need to probably use a percentage of completion with the right quality or the right quality specs, or percentage of completion within budget. The various KPIs, there aren't KPIs as such that you would say that these are valid only for employees, but not valid for a higher level section or unit or department. But use the same techniques, the same methodologies of developing the KPIs or selecting the right KPIs, making sure that if you are using, if you're managing the various types of KPIs, and you are, for example, looking at efficiency, and you have an efficiency KPI, make sure that the second KPI is an effectiveness KPI. When you are looking at a leading, for example, if you are using a leading KPI, make sure that that also the other KPI will be a lagging KPI, and they are linked to each other, and at the same time linked to the objective itself. So there isn't anything as specific as for an employee, but you will have first to create the SMART objectives for the employee, and then for each and every objective, you need to find the right KPI that best, that's most capable of measuring progress of work.
Yes, thank you very much. And then there's another one we'll take as the last one. I understand we're pressed on time. So which is the more recommended when cascading KPIs? Is it the top-down or the bottom-up approach from Brother Ali Mohammed?
From Brother?
Ali Al-Mohammed.
Ali, okay. Well, I mean, from the nature of things, cascade is always top-down. We started early on in this presentation saying that it all starts with the vision. You can't have a strategic plan for your corporate, for your organization, without having already defined what the vision is. So you have to have the vision first. From the vision, you start developing your strategy for a certain period of time. From the strategy, you start defining the annual business plans for your department. It's always top-down approach of cascade. That's why that's our reference point, if you like. The higher level goals or the higher level objectives are our reference point. Now, what goes from bottom up is more about the feedback in terms of the implementation. The performance is actually looked at bottom up because it's cumulative. It's a cumulative. So you look at the performance of individuals, that gives you collectively the performance of the units, then the performance of units gives you collectively the performance of the various departments or divisions, then the performance of the divisions will give you the corporate performance or the organizational performance as a whole. So if you like to say, I mean, and that's only my view, when we talk about planning, it's top down. When we talk about performance, it's bottom up.